you should probably not be having juice in the morning and getting up and having OJ, as everyone loves to promote. You should be having a healthy breakfast, avocados, eggs, a little bit of toast, and go from there,
Right.
and hope that those aren't as much processed as the rest of the stuff that you could be eating.
Cambrian explosion. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Cambrian Explosion. We're talking about food and the immigrant experience around food in Canada.
Yavor brought up a great point the other day that there is a big sugar epidemic going around the world, and depending on where you're living, there's a lot of different ways food is affecting us in our daily lives. I'll start it off by saying I'm type 1 diabetic, and I'm the first person that affects. I can tell you exactly what it does to me, especially with everything we eat. And it goes down to, even the fruit we eat seems to have been had extra stuff in it. Because, and I think, Yawar, you probably know a little bit more on that than I do, but I find that no matter whether I'm going out to eat or whether I've bought food, there's always something that they've processed the food with that affects me and my glucose levels. And having to live with that day to day and having to guess what might happen to me is quite a challenge.
I watched this video recently, and it had a really, like solidified my opinion on on sugar and various ways that we don't even realize that we are kind of like poisoning ourselves. So, okay, so the background on this says that I'm trying to lose some weight, and I'm talking to a doctor, and my doctor said that, yeah, basically, you have to lose weight, and you have to cut sugars and stuff like that. And one of the worst sugars that you can have is fruit sugar, especially from fruit juice. So I was actually kind of shocked to hear that because I had thought that fruit sugars were actually the healthy sugar, right? It's fructose. It's supposed to be healthy. It's not like your evil glucose. But actually, I was completely mistaken about that because, as it turns out, and obviously any, person who's read about this can tell you, ultimately it's all the same sugar. Like in your body, it gets broken down into glucose and then absorbed into from your blood into your cells, right? And the problem is that, especially with fruit juices, to cut a long story short, is that you get all of the bad stuff with none of the good stuff. And that means that when you normally have, like, for example, fruits, like an apple or something like that, you have a bunch of the sugar that comes from the fruit, but then you also have all of the fiber structure that makes up the fruit, the pulp or the meat of the fruit. It's fiber. That goes into your body as well at the same time as all the fruit sugar does. So what happens inside your stomach is that fiber slows down that pulpy mix of fiber and sugar slows down the absorption of sugar in from your stomach into the rest of into your bloodstream, and it protects you a little bit from the effects of having all that sugar.
Yeah.
But
So, yeah.
but when you have just the juice itself without the pulp, without the fiber, then you don't get any of that protection. So that juice, that sugar goes straight into your bloodstream and it hits your bloodstream straight away.
Yeah. So something I'll tell you all is a little interesting. As a diabetic, I have to deal with something called the dawn phenomenon. And what that means is that when you wake up in the morning, your hormones are sort of waking you up. And when that happens, your body's normal response is to produce insulin to make sure you're stable and you're in a line, and you actually wake up and you feel energetic. So when I wake up, my sugar level goes up right away, and that's called the dawn phenomenon. And so if you have juice when you wake up right away, that means you are automatically setting yourself up not for success. So, and I looked this up. Um, if you're not a diabetic and you have juice in the morning, you're still, your body is still producing, hormones and trying to make you stay in that straight line. So you wake up energetic, but now it has to deal with that juice, which is that spike of sugar. So your body has to then catch up to that very high glucose thing that is coming to your body. And if you do that every day, that means your body is having to compensate for that every single day. And that is in my mind when I, did that, it made me think about why so many of our people in the Pakistani community actually end up with type 2 diabetes. Is because your body has to constantly for years fight all of that high fructose juices and stuff that you immediately get up and have. And so, in a way, based on what, when Yawar, you told me this, I looked that up, it made me realize, even if you're not diabetic, you should probably not be having juice in the morning and getting up and having OJ, as everyone loves to promote. You should be having a healthy breakfast, avocados, eggs, a little bit of toast, and go from there,
Right.
and hope that those aren't as much processed as the rest of the stuff that you could be eating.
It's not that you shouldn't be having juice, it's that you shouldn't be having processed juice. Like if you take a fruit yourself, if you have an orange and you make the juice yourself in a juicer, you get the pulp and you get the fiber
Oh, no, no.
content.
No, 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 no. That
Yeah,
also, that
That
also
yeah,
doesn't
is
count either.
no, 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 because that pulp
no.
is you're getting like a tiny fraction of the normal fiber that you would get. And there's another trick to this that which we don't realize is that uh, fruits that we find on the market in groceries and stuff like that are actually have been extensively bred to be very, very, very high in sugar. So
Yeah.
this is actually unnatural. This is not something that you're going to find in nature. Wild fruits in nature are actually not that sweet, and they are much smaller and usually much more tart in flavor and full of like seeds. The fruits that we find on the market that have been bred for human consumption are actually much, much, much sweetened and much larger, and the seeds are much smaller. So, for humans to enjoy. It's like a luxury. It's like having like a 7 to 10 sugar cubes in one sitting and downing 7 and 10 sugar cubes, right? Uh, these fruits that we are getting, these are not natural. So even if you like juice them and pulp them and have that, you are getting like a huge blast of sugar that you should not be having. Basically, here's the takeaway, right? Ideal amount of glucose that a normal person should have during the day is zero glucose, in the form of like sweet foods. Ideal amount of sweet foods that people should be having throughout the day, zero sweet foods. The rest of the glucose that you will get will be coming from the normal foods that you will be having throughout the day, like your vegetables, your meats, and stuff like that. Those will be broken down in your body into glucose, and your energy will come from there. But if you have extra sugars, that's you should consider that as a luxury, and you cannot afford this luxury every day because you will fall further and further into debt.
So why do they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away?
It's
The
marketing, my
apple.
friend. It's marketing.
Pure
No, no,
We
marketing.
have been.
I disagree. I will say something. The apple will keep the doctor away if it's an apple from your backyard and it's grown on a tree, and you pluck that apple and then you eat that. That is not processed. You've grown that tree yourself, and
Yeah,
you
but
know
the apple
exactly.
itself has been bred over many generations to be unnaturally sweet. This is the point that I was making earlier, right? So
Yes, I
even if you
agree with
grow it in
that.
your own backyard, this is not a natural wild apple that you would find out in nature. This is something that humans have created, and it's much, much sweeter than is normal.
Right. But you're saying that if I was to get an apple tree from the from a greenery or something,
Yeah,
uh,
exactly. These apple trees and these apple seeds that you would be getting, these are the result of many generations of specialized breeding for human
I see what you're
consumption.
saying.
These are
Okay.
not wild apples that you would find in nature. Wild apples that you would find in nature are like this size, this small. I'm holding up 5 fingers in a very almost very tightly, almost closed, and they're full of seeds and they're very bitter.
The,
So the apples
the
that you see in the markets, these are actually like anomalous mutation, huge mutations.
That's very true, actually, now that you think about it.
The
Um,
interesting thing about certain fruits, and avocado is included in this, and apple is also included in this, is that if you have an apple and you try to grow, or an avocado, and you try to grow an avocado from its seed, it will taste and feel completely different. There are plants that are grown as clones, and there are plants that are grown like from the seed come out naturally as their parents do. Avocados and apples are interesting that when you grow them from the seed and it's not a clone, there's basically a random sorting on the taste and the look and the feel that happens. And you could get avocados that taste super bad, or you can get an avocado that tastes like chocolate, which by the way exists.
Yeah.
Which is
So, but to Yaver's point, which I'm now understanding, is if you've got a high processed apple that's in the supermarket and you take the seed from that and grow another apple tree, that's still a highly processed
yes,
apple.
it is.
So at the end of
Yeah,
the day, because of the amount of processing we've done for now hundreds of years, having come reached to this point, I guess the point that I'm taking away from this conversation is who knows what our bodies are having to battle with based on
exactly.
these
See,
different foods.
people are scared of GMO, right? Genetically modified organisms. But the real problem is not GMO, which dramatically increases the amount of crop yields and feeds, starving populations, right? That's not the problem. The problem is that all of these like uh, generation after generation bred mutated sweetened fruits full of sugar that we're having, these are kind of destroying our bodies, right? Like we have the obesity crisis, right? So that's like I think one of the huge root causes.
I will add to that that there's also the subsidy of sugar-based, sugar-producing crops like corn that happens, and because there's a subsidy, there's almost an industry that's popped up around using the subsidized crops, and the corn starch that we get almost in every processed food now, it's there. It's like it didn't used to exist before, and you can't avoid processed food completely. Like you go outside, you're gonna end up having something that's gonna have processed foods and therefore corn starch, and you're not even accounting for that in your head. That so
Oh
there's
yeah.
there's always a surplus of sugar that you're eating that you're not aware of in your day-to-day life, which makes it even worse if you're trying to hit that zero number.
Yeah, up until this point, we haven't even touched on processed food. We've been talking about purely what you would consider to be natural, unprocessed foods, right? Fruits and stuff like that. And we just saw how that's actually kind of not really true because of the way that these fruits have been bred over many generations. Now, if you talk about processed foods, there's like a huge variety of problems with processed foods, which you just pointed out.
Yeah, so I think this is a big topic that we can tackle in one of our next podcasts. This is just a small introduction to see what everyone thinks, whether they like this topic interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
and I highly recommend watching the glucose video revolution video that I will link to this episode, and you'll get a lot more information from that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And stay tuned for more informative listens as we figure out other ways that food is trying to kill us around the world, I guess. And we'll
Yeah, the
take it from
takeaway
there.
is your food is trying to kill you.
Yes. Or is your food trying to
And
kill you? Let us know whether you agree or disagree.
I think that'll make our podcast episode title as well.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, if you all were listening, please don't forget to comment, subscribe, like. If you don't like what we're saying, let us know why, and we'll move on to other topics. Maybe you don't care that your food is killing you, and you'd rather just be blissfully ignorant of it. And yeah, since you've immigrated to Canada, you just want to eat and hope it doesn't give you food poisoning. And until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and with more explosive insights.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back.